Hey, hi, how you doing? This is the Gamertron and welcome back to the Gamertron Show, and today I'm very excited to give you my Doom Open Beta review. Now please keep in mind this is only a beta and is not entirely representative of the final product, and also this Open Beta only consisted of the multiplayer portion of Doom. There was no single player or snap map content to be found. This was a multiplayer only beta. That being said though, what did I think of this particular open beta? Did it get me even more excited for Doom, or did it start to give me some doubts? Well, let me tell ya. Starting off at the main menu, and the options available. Looking at the settings here, the settings were actually pretty limited for this beta. There were very little graphics options, and almost non-existent gameplay tweaking options. Audio and controls and key bindings were perfectly fine with a ton of options. However, anything related to the visuals or the mechanics was locked off, with the more advanced and plentiful settings not being available in the beta. Which is kind of disappointing, but understandable. This beta is to stress test the online servers, not really the graphics options. It would be nice if there were more graphics options, but that wasn't really the focus of the beta. Disappointing, but understandable. Moving on to everything else. We have Profile, which basically shows your profile statistics, showing off quite a bit of interesting information, as well as challenges to complete and have completed, records, so on and so forth. We then have loadouts, which is, well, you know what a loadout is. I don't need to explain what it is. You pick what guns you want to bring into a multiplayer match. We then have hack modules. Now, some people have been a bit confused as to what hack modules exactly are. The closest thing I could give hack modules a description of are that of burn cards from Titanfall. They're special bonuses you can activate during a match that will give you some sort of bonus. And while, like burn cards, you can only activate them after you die and need to respawn, unlike burn cards from Titanfall, they are on a timer. So you can only use a hack module for a very short period of time. Although the timer does pause after you die and you can choose to switch to another hack module and save time on the other hack module, or just not equip any hack modules whatsoever and save the time saved on that hack module also for later. So a unique mechanic going on with these hack modules. And while they don't provide you with a huge advantage like a good burn card could in Titanfall, like a super powerful weapon, hack modules only provide like a tiny little advantage to you. It's nothing significant that's going to have you dominate a multiplayer match. It's just a slightly helpful tiny little boost that you get for a limited amount of time. Moving on from hack modules, we have customization, and holy shit! Even though this was just a beta, there was a staggering amount of customization for your Doom Marine, your multiplayer player avatar, your weapons, and simply wonderfully animated and adorable and hilarious and badass taunt animations. Now, the Doom Marine customization consists of armor pieces, colors, and patterns, which can be swapped around and tinkered with. You can change and customize individual armor pieces, primary and secondary colors, pattern type, pattern color, and something so cool that I've never seen before, this little extra detail bar that lets you add scratches and mud onto your character. Just an insane amount of detail, and the same goes for the weapons. While you can't customize like the individual pieces of the weapon, you are not limited in terms of colors, patterns, and that extra detail with the mud and scratches. It allows you to really personalize your weapons and armor, really get creative, and express yourself in this bloody, explosive, and dark world that is Doom. And then we have the taunts. The taunts are perfect. Like, there's nothing else I can say besides perfect. They are beautifully animated and hilarious and badass. I love the taunts. They're wonderful. Now, the customization available in the Doom Open Beta is already a fair bit of content, but moving on to the actual playable content, which is just the multiplayer in this case, with 2 multiplayer game modes and 2 multiplayer maps available. The game modes being Team Deathmatch and Warpath. Now, the Warpath game mode, I freaking adore. It's such a unique take on the typical King of the Hill game mode, because the capture control point that is usually found in these King of the Hill game modes is constantly moving. It's constantly moving in a set pattern around the map. Therefore, both player teams have to consistently follow it and stay near it to capture it. Not only did this game mode enforce teamwork, but it also enforced action, forcing the teams to collide with one another and compete for that moving control point. And the Warpath game mode just completely and utterly denies campers. You camp in Warpath, you will lose the game, which is a big plus in my book. So the actual playable content in this beta was pretty light with these two game modes and these two maps. However, both of the multiplayer maps, in my opinion, were excellent and very reminiscent of old school multiplayer arena shooter maps, as well as having a lot of elements I've found very similar to some new school map design from some more recent shooters as well. Now, I hate comparing other video games to one another, because that's simply not fair. You should let an individual video game, even if it's a sequel or remake or reboot or something like that, you should have that game stand on its own as its own game. But if I were to provide reference, for those of you who have not played the game and don't have a feel for the game, I would say that the map design is very reminiscent, at least to me, to games like Unreal Tournament, Crysis, and even Titanfall, with a heavy emphasis on verticality, movement, hidden areas and passageways that allowed you to flank the enemy, and a lot of pitfalls and bottomless pits and edges of the map, a lot of ways to fall off the map if you're not looking where you're moving or landing. However, let that lead us straight into the gameplay. The biggest and most important part of any video game, the gameplay, especially for a first-person shooter like Doom. The gameplay is this unique, yet similar and familiar mix of old school and new school gameplay mechanics, which is what I always expected from it based on the gameplay shown. You have one base movement speed that has you moving at a very fast pace. You can double jump, melee, climb, grab onto, and mantle up ledges, and depending on which weapon you're using, use a secondary fire on that weapon or aim down some sort of scope. Now, for those of you that have been following my channel, you know I've been looking forward to, anticipating, consuming any and all information about Doom. It's my most anticipated game of the year. So I gotta say, finally getting a taste, a chance to play Doom for the very first time, even though it's in multiplayer, it was incredibly satisfying. Even though this was just a beta and just a tiny fraction of what's available in the full multiplayer, it was an absolute blast to play. Some of the most fun I've ever had in a PvP multiplayer. And you guys know when it comes to PvP multiplayer, I'm very hard to please. Now, I wouldn't say I like the Doom multiplayer as much as Titanfall multiplayer, but they're two very different games with two very different mechanics, and I highly enjoyed the Doom multiplayer open beta for what it was. This unique mix of the old school and the new school first-person shooter. It had very heavy elements and was mostly based around an arena shooter, but had certain elements and mechanics found from more competitive shooters of today. However, even though it had some of those competitive elements from multiplayer shooters of today, it for the most part focused on what truly makes a great multiplayer shooter. Fun! Just flat out fun. Fast-paced action, crazy player-on-player actions and events, all which were created by the fast-paced, aggressive, and surprisingly complex and varied gameplay and gunplay. Now, while I talked about control options, the actual controls, the actual movement, the actual gunplay, shooting, aiming, all that stuff is incredibly responsive and smooth. Never once did I feel like I was fighting the controls. I certainly had to learn the controls. I gotta admit, it's been so long since I've played an old school shooter without a sprint button. It was pretty weird. And the double jump available to Doom is very different than other double jumps I have used in other games. Timing your double jump just right can mean life or death, or getting across the map a great distance, as well as exploiting the verticality of the maps. Moving on to the gunplay. The gunplay, for the most part, was incredibly satisfying. Now I say for the most part because there were two weapons in the arsenal available in the open beta multiplayer that I didn't find all too satisfying. I don't know how these weapons are going to play or feel in the single player or in Snap Map, but for multiplayer, the heavy machine gun assault rifle and the plasma rifle, they felt too weightless. They felt way too light. They didn't feel like they had any real power behind them. They certainly had the sound effects and the animation, but they didn't really have the same feel. I didn't feel any real power or weight from those weapons, which is a shame because all the other weapons are bloody fantastic. The rocket launcher is incredibly old school feeling. I got fantastic nostalgia vibes of using the Unreal Tournament rocket launcher and the Serious Sam rocket launcher. Automatic firing rocket launchers with a crap ton of ammo are just the best. Not just that, the rocket launcher I think was one of the best weapons in the multiplayer to use. Not only did it require skill in leading your rockets, actually hitting the enemy, but it was this unique and challenging and fun balance of firing your rocket at the right time. Do you want to hit them directly? Do you want to go for the area of effect damage? You know, just like with old school rocket launchers from old school shooters, the rocket launcher is just fantastic. On top of fantastic, classic, old school weapons from shooters, the double barrel super shotgun. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, is that a great feeling shotgun. On top of that, and I'm not kidding here, the super shotgun in this new Doom almost feels exactly like the super shotgun in Doom 2, original classic Doom 2, but it's just been updated and made into a 3D model. It's great. It's incredibly powerful and satisfying to use. All the other weapons I suck at using in the multiplayer. Gotta admit, I personally wasn't too skilled with these weapons, but they all felt really good, and were certainly effective weapons, just not exactly suiting my playstyle in this fast-paced arena shooter environment. Those weapons being the Vortex Rifle, Lightning Gun, and Static Rifle, all of which, again, feel great and play great, I just suck at using them. Now, we unfortunately only got to use one power weapon. In the open beta, I was hoping to get my hands on the chainsaw or maybe the BFG, but we were limited to the Gauss Cannon, and the Gauss Cannon was pretty rad. While you only got 4 shots with the thing, it was incredibly accurate, meaty, chunky, weighty, and powerful. Certainly lived up to the name of being a power weapon. Memorizing the spawn point of the Gauss Cannon, and the timing at which it spawns, was incredibly important in map control and trying to give your team a little bit of an edge in the multiplayer match. Now, this being a new school take on an old school style of shooter, now the very, very unique and very, very old school mechanic about all these weapons is that there's no reloading. Besides, obviously, the super shotgun, there is no reloading of weapons, which I gotta admit, is kind of jarring. It's by no means bad, you just get straight into the action and it just never stops. You don't need to take a break and fall back and reload and take cover or any of that crap. You're just constantly in the action, which is great, but I gotta admit, after playing literally hundreds of first-person shooters where you're constantly reloading your weapons, I was really taken back by Doom's lack of any and all reloading. I mean, even in Doom Free, there was reloading your weapons. Now, this is not a bad mechanic by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, it significantly benefits multiplayer by allowing all players to get straight into the action and just don't stop. There's no breaks. When action breaks out, when a shootout breaks out between players, it does not stop until somebody's dead. Which is great. It's just a really old school mechanic that I gotta get used to all over again. It's been a long time since I've played Unreal Tournament, Wolfenstein 3D, and Classic Doom. However, that's not the only old school mechanic at play here. In this game, we have resorted back to the well-rounded health and armor system, with health and armor pickups littered all over the map. This is great for the multiplayer because it enforces map memorization. Depending on where a shootout is taking place on the map, and how much damage you've taken from that shootout, if you want to survive, you're going to have to remember all the places on the map where the big health pickups and the big armor pickups are placed. Or in a desperate and adrenaline-induced state, scavenge for what little health and armor you can find before your next shootout. And in the game mode Warpath, it introduces this new type of gameplay in the mode, where depending on how hurt you are, you want to defend the control point, but the control point is constantly moving, but the health and armor you need to stay alive and help keep the control points over there, so you may need to leave the control point to go get health and armor, forcing you to choose between taking the optimal route to get to that health and armor, or just scavenging what little health and armor is nearby to help stay by the point. Or do you want to leave the point so that you're better suited for the next shootout? It adds so many dynamics and possibilities and situations in the gameplay. I am so glad to be playing a multiplayer shooter, and a modern multiplayer shooter, with these old school gameplay mechanics that just add so much more and so many more situations to the gameplay, and enforces map memorization, which is something I dearly miss. Because unless the multiplayer maps are a visual spectacle or have really good level design, I'm not going to remember them. For example, I can name you maybe one memorable Call of Duty map. Maybe two if I'm lucky. After playing the Doom Open Beta, The map layouts for the map Heatwave and Infernal are burned into my mind, and the next time I play the Doom multiplayer in the full release, I'm gonna know exactly where to go for all the pickups and power-ups. Now before I finish off this review, let us talk about the visuals and the graphics shown in the open beta. Now there wasn't a lot of customization available in terms of the graphic settings in this open beta, as I stated in the beginning of this video, so I don't know if Doom is looking at its best or its worst. I don't know what setting the textures and the lighting and all this other stuff is set at. I don't know if this is set to low, medium, or high. But I will say that the graphics that were presented in the beta were pretty overall solid quality. Textures were crisp with a fine amount of detail. Lighting was competent. Honestly, the lighting didn't really blow me out of the water, but then again, I didn't get too much time to focus on the lighting presented in the multiplayer maps, in the environments on your character with your shadows, because I was too busy killing things and trying not to die. One thing I will praise the game for graphically is that the special effects, the particle effects, as found in the plasma gun, the lightning gun, the static cannon, and when transforming into a demon, those look spectacular, those look awesome. And animation quality overall is fantastic. Very smooth, just very well animated. I cannot complain about the animations. The animations look great. When you're moving, when you're performing taunts, when you're performing glory kills, great animations. So overall, the Doom open beta left me craving more. I wanted more. I wanted more armor and colors to customize my weapons in Doom Marine. I wanted to play with all the weapons. I want to see all the glory kills available. I wanted to keep moving. I wanted to keep fighting. I wanted to keep shooting. I want to keep killing. I just wanted more. I wanted more. The Doom open beta has left me craving more Doom. I want more Doom. I need more Doom. But this little taste of the full experience come May 13th will satisfy me until then. So overall, I really enjoyed the open beta, the open multiplayer beta for Doom. I wish there was more to it, more for us to test, more for us to experience. But the purpose of this beta was just to test online servers, so I guess that's asking for a bit much. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the beta, but did you play the Doom beta? What'd you think of it? Let me know your thoughts, feelings, and opinions in the comments section below. I love reading comments. I get nearly enough comments. Please leave a comment. If you like the video in any way, shape, or form, please hit the like button. Hitting the like button helps you, helps me, helps everybody involved with the video if you hit the like button. If you want to support the channel and support this video, then please share the video on social media, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you want to support me and help me out directly, then consider pledging and becoming a patron on my Patreon. Anyways, guys, that's been a video, and I will see you all later.